Well, hi everyone, and welcome to another installment of Kernels, an ongoing series of short videos from the State Library of Iowa. I'm Bonnie McKewon with the Northwest District Office of the State Library, and today I'm joined by Cindy Davis with the Spirit Lake Public Library. I'll introduce Cindy and today's topic in just a minute. But first, some background about Kernels. Each installment is a quick pop of professional development that gets right to the heart of a library program or service, or even a new methodology applied in a public library setting. Kernels feature library staff discussing their work so that other in-practice librarians can learn from their experience. You'll find our kernels posted to the State Library's Continuing Education YouTube channel. There's an entire playlist there, so I hope you'll circle back to watch any of them at any time. And these videos are also cross-posted inside Iowa Learns, our continuing education catalog and learning management system. Log into your Iowa Learns account to find these kernels and to watch them there for CE credit. So on with today's kernel. Cindy Davis is the director at Spirit Lake Public Library. Cindy and her colleagues at Milford and Arnold's Park and Lake Park libraries can all attest that business is booming when it's summertime at the lakes. For today, Cindy is here to talk about a very popular service that originated at Spirit Lake Public Library, whether it's summertime or anytime, and that is Dickenson County Cemetery Records Online. So Cindy, thanks so much for doing this with me, especially at the start of your busy summer season up there. Let's us start with some background. From your website, I counted links to digitized records from 16 cemeteries in Dickenson County, from Okoboji to Superior and so many other places. It looks like such an ambitious project. How did this even get started?
So the library here has always had a really good focus on history because we had the Spirit Lake Massacre. History has always been a very popular thing here, and a lot of research is done here. So starting in 1993, library staff started saving every obituary from the local newspapers. So we have obituary indexes. We have 10 of these binders. They are huge. We have every obituary from 1993 on in these binders. And one of the other things that people in about 2004, someone who worked at the courthouse here came to a library friends meeting or a board meeting and said, is there any way that we could get the cemetery records? She said, we have dozens of calls all the time from people wanting to know where a loved one is buried. And they sent them to the library. We had the obituaries, so that was a good start. It was all paper and pencil photocopies. And so they decided to look at doing the cemetery index. And of course, at that time, it was just starting to post a lot of things on the internet. One of our friends members named Jan McDonald is into genealogy, and you can hire her to do your genealogy and stuff. So she's way into genealogy, and she kind of took off with this project, okay?
Wow.
And they started with, they started sending letters. They figured out who the cemetery caretakers were for all the cemeteries in Dickenson County. So make a list of the cemeteries. Then they tried to find all of the caretakers for those cemeteries, and they talked to them, contacted them with a letter or a phone call or whatever to try and tell them what they wanted to do. And at that time, Linda Beloit was the director here, and she did a lot of this. Jan McDonald is the Friends member who did a lot of this. And then Allie
Sure.
Erke was a staff member here at the library. And they compiled all of these records, and it took 2 or 3 years to compile all of these records. And they brought them in and put them into an Excel spreadsheet. So Microsoft Excel, they put in all of the records. I'm not even sure, there are tens of thousands in there. And they then developed this cemetery index online, and we will of course show you that. But that is kind of how it got started, because there were so many calls. And it's people who are having a family reunion, or they've planned a vacation to the lakes and they maybe know their family was from here and they're just interested in where they are. And then so they can follow up here with those obituaries at a certain point. And we're going to talk about digital newspapers later, but we've also got that as a search tool. So a huge number. We also, at one time back when they were doing paper and pencil, they printed everything off. So this is the merged records. So this was the printed list of everyone in a cemetery here in Dickenson County. And that has gotten, the biggest problem is it's too big for the binders now. So it's too much. If you went to reprint, you'd have hundreds of pages, you know, so updating it in print is not a great option.
Not too practical. So you've, over the years, this is an interesting evolution of this. You've gone from paper and pencil to Excel spreadsheets to now an index that's clickable and linkable, accessible from the library's website. That's technology, you know, kind of
a good timeline of technology.
Exactly, kind of, right, helping to boost a project like this farther along. And you know, it's interesting that you mentioned the historical sites up there in Dickenson County. I know the Gardner Cabin is just such a frequently visited place for tourists. Yeah, so that's an interesting connection between your genealogy project and the really interesting and dramatic history of the Spirit Lake area.
Yeah, because Abby Gardner is in our records, obviously, everybody.
Oh, right, very good. Well, that is an interesting backdrop. And I know from your website, when I went there to kind of get familiar with this resource, I clicked first on the Spirit Lake Memorial Gardens. And I saw a photo of the cemetery itself, a map of the cemetery plots, and then the records themselves, which matched the deceased with the plot numbers. So you have screen sharing permission. If you want to bring up the library's website, maybe you can demonstrate what this resource looks like to folks. I think it's easier explained when we can see it visually.
Okay, and one other thing that we've started doing, several of the cemeteries have asked for a QR code for our website, our cemetery index. So, and for some of them, that is posted right on their signage in their cemetery, or it is in the pamphlets or brochures, so that anyone who scans that QR code then it will take them to our website and the record. So if they come after hours and wanted to find someone, that's a good way to do it. So
that's a brilliant idea. And again, another techie revolution or evolution in this whole process.
All right, let's start looking at what we have here. So this is the library's main website. And if you look up on the list of options here, you have cemetery records, and clicking on that will bring you into this listing of the cemeteries in our county. So if you go into any one of those and click on it, it's going to bring up a cover page, which tells you this is a sign usually that they have at theirs also, have on in their area, okay? And then the next thing that will show up is clicking up. And the map gives you their particular numbering system. And we can't help a lot with that. If they need more help than that, these numbers are coded on the records for the person, you know, and it's it looks a lot like that math you had to learn in high school. So it goes with that. And then the third thing, of course, is the records. And the records, this one is 21 pages long. I don't think this is our biggest cemetery. So when you start talking the amount of data, this is huge, okay? They are in alphabetical order by last name. We have, if they were a veteran, we try and post that. So on this end, on the end here where it says military, it will show if they were in service. It also will have a few notes there. Sometimes it's an infant. If there were extenuating circumstances with their death, that will be in there. So obviously it's going to be normally in family groupings. The lot number, like 701/1, you go back to the map, that's how you calculate or find where it is. And it's going to be hard to find the exact spot. It'll get you in the general vicinity pretty well. So we have basically this same thing in a form that we send out every year, which we'll talk about later, but it'll look exactly like this. So you've got cemetery names and location and the dates, of course. Year of birth, date of death, year of death. And one of the other things that we do, color coding here, if you can see that it's orange.
Yes.
I have 15 years of cemetery records, so it's kind of color code each year so that you know you have the most current version up on the website. Okay, so that is what it looks like on the web page. Now, any questions about this, Bonnie?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's a similar pattern, I presume, for all the other 15.
They're all similar, but one other thing I want to show you here that goes with this, if you go back to our main page and you go down to the bottom, we have our online resources. Okay, and if you get, so here are our cemetery records, and a lot of different places link to our cemetery records. So like I said, we've done a QR code that you can link to from the phone from any of the cemeteries. The other libraries in our county are all free to use this. So any genealogical site can use this. But we also are part of the GenWeb project for Iowa. And we are also, it's incorporated kind of with Find a Grave. So GenWeb is a great website. If you go in, this is Iowa GenWeb. If you go up here in the left-hand side, county projects, find your P, and you can see how much is done in your county already.
Oh, wow.
So if you click on the newspapers link here, it will take you to our digitized newspapers. If you click on the cemeteries, it gives you information on where to find the cemeteries.
Okay, so there's
but if
your
you go to the top, we have our
addresses.
picture here, and it'll take you back then to our cemetery page. So if you clicked on this, it's taking you back to this page.
Right. So that's really helpful because I presume quite a few of them are off the beaten path, right? Not exactly not exactly on the main drag.
A bunch of them are small church cemeteries out in the country and everywhere else. So this also links to any other genealogical resources that are done for your county. So a lot of it's been worked on already. The other one we go to then is Find a Grave, and I assume everyone knows about Find a Grave. You can search first name, middle name, last name, if you know the year they were born or the year they died, and if you know the cemetery location. And this is a nationwide search and heavily used, and a lot of our records have been merged into this then or are accessed through this. And on this website, it will show you a picture of the stone. It will sometimes have an obituary, sometimes a family picture, and that is something volunteers do and update cemeteries. So our work goes in with this, and we're very happy with that. It's awesome. So
it's a much broader reach, really, than I was aware of. Your cemetery records project. What I will be sure to do when I send this recording in to be uploaded to all of our various places, I will be sure to include the link to Iowa Gen Web Project and a link to Find a Grave as well. So the Iowa Gen Web Project, statewide, obviously, so other genealogy groups across the state are probably a big part of that, you think?
I think so, yes. Anybody who's into genealogy is going to know quite a bit of this, yes.
Sure. Well, that is so great to see all of that and to see the connections and how your project there in Spirit Lake really has gotten a much wider reach by being a part of statewide and national projects as well. You know, when we first talked about this idea for turning this into a kernel, you mentioned that this is a frequently used resource. I can see why now that I see it much better in color. How much people appreciate having this information digitized and linked from the library's website. I'm sure your courthouse maybe are among the people who appreciate it the most, do you think?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. Do you have a sense of how many people have used this service? And has anyone shared some family history stories with you? Or maybe people are sharing too many family history stories with you?
We estimate that 80 to 100 people use this every month, and I would guess that is a very low estimate. I get emails from all over the country. We get a lot of, when people go south in the wintertime, they seem like they work on genealogy. We get a lot of emails from that type of thing. We have had the high schoolers working genealogy things or working on stuff, use our website with that. One of the cool stories was probably a year and a half or 2 years ago, I was contacted by a couple from the Netherlands, and they had a memorial from a soldier from Spirit Lake, Iowa, who was killed in the Netherlands in World War II in Germany in a battle, and they took care of his stone. So they put decorations on it, and they were able to look on our website and find information that he was from here and stuff. And they contacted me, and we were able to get them in touch with digital newspapers and stuff. We were them in touch with family members, and later then we were contacted by an author who was writing about this man, and the author came here to visit, and the whole thing kind of happened between our digital newspapers, cemetery records, and so our local history collection. And we have a couple copies of that author's book. So he came and talked to us, and he thanked us for the research in that. That was kind of cool.
Well, there's a full circle.
Yeah.
There's a full circle story. This is just so ambitious, and it's so much broader than I was aware of. So you have so much already that's uploaded. What's the process for updating the cemetery index? How do you or your friends group or whoever's behind that, how do they begin to approach that?
We kind of have it down to a fine, so it's easier. We have a letter that we send out every January. We send a letter telling what we're doing and a copy of that form that you see on the website, a blank form like that. Some of it's filled in if we know of deaths, so we kind of keep track during the year. Jan McDonald does a lot of that work. And we send then a letter out to every cemetery caretaker, and they fill it in with any of and a lot of it we have pre-filled, but you could do it without any of that pre-fill. And the cemetery caretaker then will fill it in for all the internments that year in that cemetery.
Okay.
And of course you get internments that are not in our local newspaper. You get people from, and especially now with COVID, last year was interesting. We had people that died, but they aren't interred yet. Or, you also now have a lot of people being cremated. So that changes a lot of this. The records are not as complete as they used to be as far as every death. But we send that out to the caretakers. They send it back to us filled out, Jan McDonald has the master spreadsheet, and she will go in and update that spreadsheet with all of the new information. She sends it to me, and we have found that our best way of storing it on the website is in a PDF format. So you can save it as a PDF. You know, each one is separate when we start with that. It's all saved as a PDF. And then I can just switch out the older one with the new one. So we work on that process. Usually, obviously, we want to have it done by Memorial Day every year when you have a lot of people that are coming.
Oh, sure. That's makes sense. That's a good.
And that's another issue that we have with that now is it's become so huge. We used to have a merged record list that had everyone, but that's enormous now. It's so huge that it's a hard file to even upload or manage. So right now we're trying to decide how we separate that out into smaller segments and still keep it updated. So that'll be an issue. That's something we're working on right now. My library staff maintains the obituary file, so that is current, and that every week they photocopy what's in the newspaper or print it off digitally, and that goes into that obituary file, and that gets used quite a bit too. A lot of that we can scan it and email it out, and we do a lot of our questions come that way now. We get phone calls, we get questions. Some people still want it all in print and want to come in and browse through those huge binders, so we do that. We have a lot of calls for obituaries and stuff that we find out of the newspapers, the digital newspapers. And we also have a pretty good collection of family histories and local history here. You know, we have stuff from the old handwritten stuff in a little plastic binder to things that are pretty well done. So we have those in a file, of course, in the reference section.
Well, this has to be a treasure trove for genealogists near and far, right? I mean, because I know my sister Peggy is just huge into genealogy. She has done the most wonderful family scrapbooks for all of us siblings, and on every side, on paternal, maternal, going back, 4 or 5 generations. And she's given us just such a gift in these scrapbooks. And I love looking back on them. And she's done so much work. And I can see that you and your colleagues there in Spirit Lake have done so much work on this.
Some of our coolest requests, we had somebody a while ago who did not realize that their ancestor was buried here. And we were able to find where they were buried and that in obituary for them. And we also found newspaper articles and hooked her up with the newspapers. And she found out they had a store here and what they had done and birth announcements for the great uncles and things like that. So that was kind of cool. Also had, we get a lot of emails and calls for reference. And my favorite one, probably 4 or 5 years ago, someone requested information about the Gypsy Queen's funeral. So they used to have gypsies who came into Arnold's Park, and one of the Gypsy Queen or whatever, passed away here somewhere locally, and there was a huge write-up about the gypsies gathering to do this, and what they did for a memorial. And that was really cool. I had no idea. So I find out a lot of information when you do this search too. It's just never dull.
Well, right. And you mentioned high school kids or even maybe younger ages doing Iowa history projects. I mean, what a great resource for your school kids as well to use what the library's amassed there. That's amazing. I know that this cemetery project originated at the Spirit Lake Public Library, in large part thanks to your friends group and all the committed genealogists there. The other Dickenson County libraries link to the records from their websites, which gives this even broader coverage. But I know also that the Dickenson County libraries have worked together on digitizing area newspapers. Is there anything more you want to say about that collaborative project?
that is an awesome project, and that is very, very heavily used, probably more so even than the cemetery index, I think. And we have, I don't know when they started it, if all 5 went together or if they had a grant for it, but right now, as far as maintaining it, we have digitized everything from 1886 on. And it's done, ours is done by Jeff Brown at Advantage. And that is who, the person who stores it, sort of hosts it, everything. So Milford Memorial Library, Arnold's Park Library, and Spirit Lake Library, all 3 have friends groups, and they support this together. Okay, so we, every couple of years, Advantage will contact us. They will have the newspapers from the state library. We have microfilmed everything, and then we also have it all digitized. So it is a decent chunk of change when you start doing all that. But when you break it down every couple of years, it's not too bad on the update and upkeep. And that is, of course, available also on our website, available from anywhere. And that is very heavily used, and people doing genealogy. But my city administrator contacted me a few months ago and was looking for a zoning ordinance and asked if we had any old records. And I said, well, we have the newspapers. And he was looking for a zoning ordinance from 1915 on the old school building here. And I was able to pull that off our digital records, which they could then use to help somebody with a project they're working on. So it's pretty cool to be able to go in and find everything. And I mean, there's probably a few years that aren't done because you either didn't have quality newspapers to scan, or they were, you know, unavailable. But it's pretty cool. And that is also comprehensive. So it's every newspaper from the county from the last 140 years almost.
Wow.
So
you guys are the research place up there.
We like it. We enjoy it.
See, and we thought we were just kicking back in your sailboats.
Beach reads and
yeah, doing beach reads. That's right. And
it's never dull.
Flipping your flip-flops. That is so good. Anything else you can think of to share about this project? I'm just so impressed by how what a meaningful service this is for your staff, I'm sure, but for the recipients, for the researchers, and for the family history angle, for the genealogists. I just think this must be such a rewarding thing for your library to provide, and really such a great service for the genealogists to find what it is they're looking for at your library.
It's common enough that all of my staff knows how to do it and is very familiar with it. You do get people who will contact us and say, we have someone's, you know, you maybe have someone's name spelled wrong, or a birthday was wrong, and that kind of thing. We can easily go back in and fix and update it. So
sure,
I would encourage people, you know, start. Even if it takes you a while. This took 3 or 4 years to really get started and get going. But even if all you do right now is start saving obituaries, you know, and even if you did that digitally, if you could get the find a grave information and work on updating all of that, which already has probably most of the cemeteries in your county. And you could even work from that angle to update and to complete more of what they have. So I am just thrilled that we have the digitized newspapers, because that adds a wonderful level to it.
Absolutely.
And it makes our job easier when people are searching. But digitizing the newspapers is a real asset here, and it's heavily used. The cemetery index is heavily used. And at this point, it's not a huge amount of work anymore. The first years, it was a huge amount of work. And now it's just a matter of updating every year. So.
But this, to me, strikes me as long-range planning, right? And just such a wonderful goal to include maybe in a library strategic plan, especially in those areas that have just such a booming interest in genealogy and very active genies in their area. I think this would be a great service to try to replicate. And just be prepared that I'm adding your name and your email to to the closing slides for this kernel, so that if people do need need more information or maybe some more advice for how to get started on a project similar to yours, hopefully they can contact you.
But I think there's a lot of people willing to
advice.
help. A lot of people are willing to help with a project like this. Get your churches involved.
It does. It does take a village, right?
Volunteers.
Yeah, it does take a village to do something this big. It's ambitious,
Yes.
but just how meaningful, how gratifying this must be in your library work. Well, thank you so much, Cindy. I so appreciate your being here, especially impressive to grab a hold of you during summertime up there. And thanks to all of you for watching. Remember, if you want to earn CE credit for this or other kernels, log into your Iowa Learns account. Simply watch the videos there, complete the evaluation for CE credit. And certainly you can find them also, as I said, on the State Library's Continuing Education YouTube channel. And if those of you watching this have something to share from your library, a new program, a new initiative, something to add to our assortment of kernels, we're always looking for those ideas, and we would be happy to talk with you about your idea. Please get in touch with us and let us know. We want to hear from you. So thanks again, Cindy, and thanks to all of you for watching.
Have a good day.